Hi, I'm Rob.
And I'm Rob.
And this is Ask Rob and Rob.
Hello everyone and welcome to Ask Rob and Rob, the show where you give us your wonderful questions and we do our very best to give you a wonderful answer. It's a popular format, it's been running for a long time, but we still love getting your questions in. So, let's give you a reminder of how you can get your question on the show.
Yep, it works like this. You just have to leave us a voicemail, and you can do that in one of two ways. You can call 013-808-00035, or you can go to propertyhub.net/ask. Either way, you'll leave us a message, you'll wait patiently, and we'll give you an answer, just like we're about to right now for Deemada.
Hi, Rob and Rob. My name is Deemada. I'm looking to invest in my second buy-to-let and currently looking around for good deals. I noticed interest rates have gone up a bit. I'm worried that the higher interest rates will squeeze my profit margins. Do you still recommend investing in buy-to-let? Also, thanks for the great content. Keep up the good work.
Great question, and really topical because so many people will be going through this right now. Let's get straight to it. Will you get a reduced rental return today than you would have a few years ago? The quick answer is yes. So when you're planning for buy-to-let, if you're just looking at the rental return, you are going to be a little disheartened. But that's why you should look at the total return. Because a few years ago, the market wasn't really moving much. It was going up by a few percent. And now, as you hear frequently on our market updates, the market is growing at a double-digit rate. So your overall return, capital growth plus rental return, is actually stronger. And you just have to adapt at different phases of the market. At some points in the market, you will do really well from a rental return, but not so well on capital growth. And at other phases of the market, like this phase, you'll do really well from capital growth, but not so well from the rental return. Now, does that mean you ignore rental returns altogether? No, absolutely not. You absolutely need to make sure that you're making a profit each and every month. You just have to accept that that profit isn't the most important thing. The reason you have to be making a profit is because if you're losing money every month, it's called a liability, and you want an asset, something that produces money and income each and every month. So don't be disheartened, because arguably now people are making more on paper, at least, than at any point in the last 10 years through property, because property prices are going up by so much. So I'd much rather be doing a deal right now than not. Interest rates will probably continue to go up a little bit further as well. So the sooner you buy and lock in, the better, because over the short term at least, interest rates will probably continue to tick up slightly. And if you want to learn more about total return, then check out episode 452, where we did a whole episode on that very subject.
Yeah, the other thing I'd keep in mind here is that there are certainly indications that there's headroom for rents to increase. So we had a period of quite a few years when there wasn't that much in the way of rental growth. I know there's a perception that landlords are always jacking up the rent, but actually rents were in most parts of the country growing slower than wages and not growing much at all for quite a long time. As we're here on Thursday on the Market Update edition of the Property Podcast, lots of data around at the moment showing that rents are increasing as a result of inflation, wages increasing, etc., etc. So if you are in a position to buy and lock in your interest rate for however many years, then no guarantees, but you'd hope that you'd also have some rental growth over the coming years to increase your returns there. So do make sure you listen to Market Update this Thursday for more on that. Okay, let's move on to our second question now. This one's from AJ.
Hi, Rob and Rob. AJ here from London. Been reading a lot about Section 21 being abolished, and I wonder what you thought the implications were for landlords should that happen, especially in regards to rent increases. I review my rents just in fairly once a year, along with government guidelines, adjusting them to market rates. Sometimes they go up and sometimes they don't. I'm worried that if the Section 121 is abolished, there'll be no repercussions for tenants who don't agree with the rent increases. And I guess on that, what's the best way to ensure tenants agree to rent increases? Thanks.
Thank you, AJ. Really good question. And for anyone who's not aware of what this proposal is or some of the legislation that's going on at the moment, we've put together a YouTube videos about this subject, which we'll make sure that we link to in the show notes for this episode. So do go and watch that one. But the brief bit of background here is that basically under these proposals, the tenancies are going to run on indefinitely. So no more 6-month or 12-month ASCs. They're going to run on forever, and they can only be ended by the landlord if you've got a valid reason for doing so. So the tenant's done something wrong, or you want the property back to live in yourself or to sell it. So AJ, you're quite correctly wondering what that means in terms of rent increases, because under these proposals, you will be able to do exactly what you currently do, which is increase the rent once a year. You're not doing so by an unreasonable amount, so that won't change. But what if the tenant just goes, no, not paying that? I don't know if you would have done anyway, but you will no longer have the ability to just say, well, in that case, we need to end this tenancy. Instead, you'll have to issue something called a Section 13 notice, which does exist at the moment, but ends up not really being used very much. But you will have to go through that process. If the tenant thinks that the rent increase is unfair, they can then refer it to some kind of arbitration. But what the proposals are not clear on at the moment is what happens if your rent increase is reasonable. You can prove that it's reasonable. It's just that the tenant isn't willing to pay it. Presumably, there will have to be something put in place to give you the ability to end the tenancy, because basically you can't agree on the rent between you. Currently, there's been nothing explicitly said about that, but there'll have to be something like that in the legislation when it gets drafted, because it's the only way it can really work. So your question is a really good one. There isn't a good answer because it just hasn't been decided yet, basically. There's nothing been said about it. I'm pretty sure that there's nothing to worry about from your point of view, because you'll be able to keep on doing what you're doing. But I think what this really shows is how far we are from these laws being ready to actually go live. There's a whole process that needs to be gone through, and there are cases like this and plenty of other areas as well, where there's either just not enough detail or it seems like it just hasn't been thought of. So we'll have to go through a proper legal drafting and debate. So I think it could be quite a long time until we see this come into effect. But we will, of course, keep you updated right here.
We will, and we'll bring you the main podcast, the property podcast, on Thursday. So make sure you join us for that. Thank you so much for your questions. Remember, get yours in over at propertyhub.net/ask. And we'll be back on Thursday and with Ask Rob and Rob this time next week. Until then, take care, have fun, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.